பேச்சாளர் Harish Marimuthu அவர்கள். Harish Marimuthu from London is a social researcher and a youth advocate, passionate about exploring how humanist values nurture happiness and fulfillment in the modern world. His work examines rationalism and happiness index, analyzing how critical thinking, equality and secular ethics can shape both personal and collective well-being. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my absolute privilege and pleasure to welcome Harish Marimuthu. I now invite Sahodari Sumati, Secretary of PATCA, to honor Brother Harish Marimuthu. Over to you, Harish.
Vanakkam all. We are going to discuss about the rationalism and happiness index. How is rationalism and being non-religious can help promote the happiness. Before looking into it, let's look at what is happiness. Happiness is something like an inner subjective state of the mind. It is something we have to feel it, not someone else tells about it. So it is, is there a way to measure the happiness? We will find it out. In this session, we will look at how do we measure happiness and what are the measurements in happiness, and is there a ranking of countries of the happiness, and what are the indicators we can assess for happiness. And after we assess all these factors, we can add two more factors into it: the religious factor, the democracy factor, and non-religious factor. When we sum up all together, are we getting any bigger picture? That's what we are going to see in this session. Before getting into it, just want to see what Periyar has said about happiness. Pugalum inbamum thaan manitha jeevanin latchiyam. Fame and happiness are the goals of human life. While I was reading about the fame and happiness are the goals of human life, it just reminded me when Miss Mary was telling about the definition of humanism, the facilitation of fulfillment of the life. Is there a way to measure happiness? Yes. Life evaluation, life satisfaction and affect. These are the three measures of happiness, and these are all the questionnaires. And University of Oxford has been taking this research with multiple citizens of the countries in various phases of the year and collate it and publish it as a report. They use the Cantor ladder mechanism where they take from the scale of 0 to 10, how does they feel it happiness. So the questionnaires are pretty much on this aspect. And these are all the parameters. If you look at the life evaluation, inequality is measured. If you look at the explanatory factors, GDP per capita, health life expectancy, freedom, generosity, perception of corruption, social support, and emotion. Are they positively feeling or negatively feeling? And have they donated, volunteered? What the compassion looks like? So these are all the factors have been measured. This is how the world happiness ranking looks like. If you look pretty much, the African countries are less happy, European countries are more happy. So the overall picture looks like this. And these are the most 10 happy countries: Finland, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, Netherlands, Costa Rica, Norway, Israel, Mexico and Australia. We just ruled out number 9 because all the data, because the measurement data, all the data were not available, so we just ruled it out for the data scientific purpose. These are the least 10 happy countries. Again, we ruled out certain countries where all the data aren't available. For comparison perspective, these are all the least 10 happy countries. So during the next sometimes, we just want to compare how does the least happy country and the most happy countries are looking like. So we have happiness ranking, most happy country and least happy country comparison. We are going to look at the health indicators first. This is how the health indicators looks like. The number of physicians per 1,000 people in the world. Maybe it's not visible, we'll go to the data directly. Don't get too much lost with the data and numbers. The comparison is with the least happy and most happy. If we look at the least happy country, the numbers aren't looking good. Whereas the most happy country, it is having a very good indicator, the number of physicians are high. If you look at the next health indicators, the infant mortality rate, the least happy country is very high. That is not a good indicator. If you look at the most happy country, it is very less, except Mexico having 11. So we can just rule out Mexico out of this indicator. If you move on to the next one is malnutrition among the kids within the 5 years of age. If you look at this data, the kids has to be much nutritious. How does this data looks like? So if you look at the least happy countries, most of the countries malnutrition is high. Whereas the most happy country, the malnutrition is less, which is good for the kids. So the most happy countries are looking after their kids. Then the next one is education indicator. How much percentage of GDP is spent on education? The least happy countries are spending less on education. Most happy countries are spending more on education, except Costa Rica, so we can roll out Costa Rica. The next economic indicator is GDP per capita. And if you look at this, the least happy countries are having very less GDP per capita, whereas the most happy countries have very good GDP per capita, except Costa Rica and Mexico. We can just roll them out as well. Then another economic indicator, next moving on to the economic indicator, is the multidimensional poverty. The multidimensional poverty is a recent indicator which looks after the poverty, education and infrastructure all combined together. If you look at the least happy countries, it is very high, poverty is very high. Whereas the most happy countries, the poverty indicator is very less, which is a good indicator. Now let's look at the political indicator. And most of the data what we have seen are taken from the World Bank data. So the data are more genuine and authentic. Sorry. Okay. Then if you look at the electoral democracy, the political indicators, the electoral democracy index, this is another indicator. If you look at the least happy countries, the democracy index isn't looking good. So this is from 0 to 1. Whereas the most happy country, the indicators are looking good, except Israel and Mexico. We can take Israel and Mexico out of it. Then press freedom index rank. If you look at this press freedom index rank, again the least happy countries are not having a very good indicator, whereas the most happy countries are having a good indicators, except Israel and Mexico, the rank is still not looking fair, so we can rule them out. The reason why we are ruling them out will come to know in next few slides. Next, the political indicator. This is the rule of law. How does the rule of law is measured? In the least happy countries, the rule of law is not very good, whereas in the most happy country, the rule of law is in much favor of the people. Next, we are going to the next women rights indicator. This is gender inequality index. If we take the gender inequality index, the least happy countries are not good. The inequality is very high. Whereas in the most happy countries, the inequality is less, and which means the equality is high. Except Costa Rica and Mexico, we can take them out. The next, not only the women right indicators, the another part of women right indicator is percentage of women in the parliament. So this is how the percentage of women in the parliament looks like between the least happy country and the most happy countries. In the most happy countries, the indicator is looking promising, except Israel. So we can rule the Israel out of this. Sorry? Oh, is it? So this was the data taken from one of the from the data the World Bank. I don't know. Is the data correct or incorrect? Is the data looking okay or not okay? Perfect. Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, it is still less. It has to be at least 50-50, but it is still less. If you look at the policy decision makers, how many women are in the policy decision making? This is how the data looks like. The policy decision making, again, the most happy countries are doing good. Australia 43.5%, 50% in Norway, and Finland and Netherlands are doing good as well. This is scientific indicators. We are not taking much data here. We are just taking only the patterns associated with the country, and the most happy countries have more patterns. Less happy countries have very less patterns. Costa Rica we can rule out. In the sports indicator, how does as a community they are contributed in the sports? Okay, this is how the sports indicator. This is we are taking the Olympic medal as an indicator here for comparison. Even in sports, these countries are doing well. Okay, so far we have looked at various indicators taken by the World Bank. The next two plane of comparison we are going to have is religious comparison and non-religious comparison. On these two aspects, what inference we can make and what conclusion we can go for. This is how the religious landscape of the world looks like. And if we compare between the least happy country and most happy countries, the most happy countries are having Christianity as the religion. In the least happy country, Islam and Christianity as well as Buddhism are followed. We also have the data of the non-religious population among the world. If you look at the non-religious indicator, this is 2020 data. And in research, people call it a social tipping point. 25% is religiously unaffiliated population is 25%, Christians 28, Muslims 25, Hindus 14. So religiously unaffiliated population is coming to 25%. This is called social tipping point. When throughout the world is moving towards the social tipping point and crossing the non-religious nature. So religion is going down and the non-religious nature is going up. So this is a clear indicator amongst the world. If we take the non-religious indicator between the least happy country and the most happy countries, again clearly it says the most happy countries are having the good amount of populations on the non-religious indicator. So if we compare the least and most, we can rule out, let's take only Christianity as for the comparison. We take happiness as a comparison. Now let's take the countries which have Christianity as a comparison and rule out Islam and Buddhism and as well as Judaism from the right hand side, most happy countries, just for comparison's sake. Not only that, even if the countries are happy, the citizens are happy, there are certain indicators of economic indicator, education indicators and health indicators which are not good for Costa Rica and Mexico, we can rule them out as well. And there are certain countries in happy countries like Finland, Sweden, Netherlands, Norway and Australia which have already achieved the social tipping point of 25%. So more than 25% of the population have already are growing towards non-religious nature. Not only that, the social tipping point is greater than 25% and the rate of increase is also high, which is very good for Australia. Australia is leading amongst the rate of increase between various countries. Now we are near to conclude. So the influence of religion on humankind is having a historical evidence of almost 3,000 years for Hinduism, for Buddhism for almost 2,500 years, for Christianity around 2,000 years, and for Islam 1,400 years. The religion has been influencing the humankind. There is another institution, which is the political democracy, that is also influencing the humankind. I am taking it as 200 years as the marker here. Though democracy is defined with various definitions, Let's take the rule of law and people, everyone getting vote. The mature democracy has a timeline of 200 years. Let's overlap these two things. So humankind are influenced by religion, also by democracy. So what's the question now? What's the influence of non-religious? There are countries which still continue to be religious with democracy but not happy. There are countries which still move away from religion but are happy. So this is a inference. Another inference is these three religions are not in the top 10 happy countries: Hinduism, Islam and Buddhism. So the conclusion is there are religions in the world and people are moving away from religion. There is one saying in Tamil from Kanippungutra, like Yadum Ure Yavarum Kelir, Tilum Nandrum Peratharamara, Nodalum Tanidalum Avatrorana, Sadam Puduvadandre, Valdal Inidi and a Magil Tandrum Ilame. Yeah, I mean that poem's context of explanation of happiness is slightly different. But we can say by being non-religious, Valdal Inidi Endru, Mahildi Endru Valvomi. So as countries move away from non-religious, countries are become more happy and world is more happy. Thanks for this wonderful opportunity for Periyar Ambedkar Concept to Australia. Nandri Vanakkam.
Thank you. Harish has completed his speech in exactly 15 minutes on the dot. Thank you.